open the meeting. Let me just check that. Sorry. And yeah, so anyway, a big welcome to you, Dan, and I'm thrilled that you could join us tonight. I know you're busy. He also has a podcast and has interviewed over 450 people. I guess it's more than that since we spoke. So anyhow, welcome to you, and yeah, we're really happy to have you join us tonight.
Thanks, Pippa, and it's really a pleasure to be with you all. And Pippa, we spoke an hour ago and you're not well, so even more kudos to you for turning up for the campfire chat when you're not feeling well. So thank you so much. So you're right, I have walked the Camino 5 times. I have been to Spain 8 times. I've been to Madrid now 14 times. The Camino keeps luring me back, keeps drawing me somehow, and I don't quite know why, but then almost as if I understand in a moment why. Something happens, somebody says something, I go back there and I know immediately why. So I don't know quite why I asked the question, but I want to just take a little step back, if I can, to the year 2010. My little brother Benny died very suddenly, and he'd had a troubled life. He kind of danced to a different rhythm than the rest of us. And I was at Mum's, and my mother was studying theology at the time, and I read Shirley MacLaine's book The Camino, and said to my wife Jen, "I'm going to do that one day to honor Benny." And then, you know, life gets in the way, children and everything. And then 2014, another thing happened. My dad died suddenly. And so I was back in that same room reading that same book. And I said to my wife, "Oh, now I've got to walk that to honor my dad and my brother." And then in 2016, I was supposed to go to the Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro. And because my career has been in media, I've worked in media my whole life. And I was going to turn 50 in Rio with a big dinner at Ipanema Beach, and it was all organized and everything. And then they canceled my gig. So everybody said, what are you going to do now for your 50th birthday? And I said to my wife, "Oh, well, now I'm going to have to organize a concert or something." I'm a musician as well and have been a musician for 40 something years. And at the last minute, it was like, we don't want to do that. It's going to cost us thousands of dollars.
Hey, Dan, you accidentally muted yourself there.
No, I think I muted everybody. Can anybody, Dan's, I think that's mine. I was trying to be clever. I don't know how to undo it. 1 second.
I'm muted again. Yeah.
Good. Can you unmute yourself?
How about that?
Yeah.
You got me now? Okay, so yeah. And I walked into Santiago de Compostela on my 50th birthday as a gift from my family. And to say it changed my life would be kind of a little bit of an understatement, really, because I came home and, as I said, I worked in media and I started a podcast. I've now done 450 interviews with people all around the world. We're just about to hit 2 million listens. I've appeared at conferences in Canada, in America, in Spain, in the UK. I went back in 2017 and walked from Lourdes to Santiago, 1,000 kilometers, Lourdes in France, and to start a Camino when there are 9,000 people there hoping for a miracle was the most extraordinary way to begin a pilgrimage. When I was so well that I was about to walk 1,000 kilometers, and when we started the night before, we watching from the side of the basilica as 9,000 people were singing Ave Maria, carrying candles, hoping for a miracle. So it was the most incredible journey. And while I was on that journey, I'm walking in the middle of nowhere and I started to sing. I always sing when I walk. sing stupid songs, sing funny songs, lyrics that come into my head, any song that I can think, just to keep myself company in a way while I'm on the Camino. I walk and sing. I just sing. And I was walking with two German girls once through the little town of Astea, and they said, "Sing something for us, Dan." So I was singing, "There's a bear in there and a chair as well." And as I went past these two Australian guys, and they said, "You're an idiot, Dan." But at least I was singing, right? And so I just sang all the time. And in 2017, I ended up singing at the top of my lungs in the middle of nowhere on my own, lyrics to a song that I just made up on the spot. And I got to town in Hontanas, and I wrote down the lyrics. I'd never actually played the song. And then that night I played it for a bunch of pilgrims. And the next morning I was in this cafe, and an Irish girl came up to me and said, "Where are you staying tonight?" I said, "I don't know. I never know where I'm going to stay." "Why?" She said, "I want to hear this song that you wrote." I said, "How did you know about that?" She said, "Oh, there was some people there last night and they filmed it and we all watched it this morning in the cafe and we'd love to hear it again." So I sang it that day at lunchtime and that night, and I sang it the next day and the day after. And by the time I got to Santiago 4 weeks later, people were singing it back to me. I'll show you. I've had people make wood carvings of me and the song, like made out of wood. It's extraordinary. And so I finished this song. I came back to Australia and recorded it, and I didn't want any computers or anything used in the recording of the song. I wanted to use tape, like the old days. And to find a studio like that was virtually impossible, but I did. I found this mad scientist guy who had this old-fashioned studio with, tape that's this thick and a big old machine with things wrapped around. And we recorded it live, just all sitting around. And at the end of the night, we're listening back to it. And we said, "Holy smokes, we captured lightning in a bottle." So we released the song and it went nuts. And people from all over the world listen to the song. And these days, when you put your song on Spotify and Apple Music and all those kinds of things, you can see where people are listening to it. And still today, I get messages every day, every single day, from someone in Budapest, someone in Johannesburg, someone from it doesn't matter, just every single day, someone listening to that song. And so I've actually played it for two different prime ministers at Kirribilli House. I've played it on television in America. I've played it on television here. I've played it on the radio countless times. I've done concerts in Europe and America, Canada. I just came back from a 12-show concert around Canada. And it changed my life. So now I come back and I'm thinking, well, what next? So in 2020, I go to the United States and I tour the song, and I do a big long tour. And March 18, I'm in Seattle, and my wife Jen rings me and says, "You have to come home. There's this thing called COVID." I said, "What's COVID?" I didn't know anything about it because I'd been on the road. And I got the last flight out of Los Angeles to Australia. I was on the last Virgin flight. And of course, everything changed overnight. Because I worked in the media, I was able to keep working. I didn't have to work from home. I went into the studio every day. And then 2 years later, I walked with my family, my wife and 2 sons. And then in April 2023, I got a virus and I became ill. That's when it all changed. So I started coughing and I couldn't stop. And I coughed so hard, I tore one of my vocal cords completely in half. So someone who'd been a musician their whole life, as well as working in the media, I still would do some years 20 shows a year, some years as many as 140 shows a year. I'm back up to 140 shows a year now. And I lost my voice. And we went to the doctor, the specialist, and he said, well, we can do we can do some surgery. But I can't guarantee it's going to be okay. I can't guarantee any result. And he did the surgery. And when he finished, he said, it didn't work. You'll never sing again. I said, oh, okay. It's kind of not the sort of thing you want to hear. So I said to Jen, my wife, I'm going to just maybe get a second opinion. And I went to see this woman, and she told me about it, this other friend of hers who was a speech therapist who had been doing it for 55 years. And I said, okay, 55 years, that's a long time. And so I went to see this lady. Her name was Cecilia. And Cecilia is the patron saint of musicians, if you didn't know. The Paul Simon song, Cecilia, is about the patron saint of musicians. And she said, I don't think you'll ever sing again either, but why don't we have a go? And I said, okay. So twice a week I went to see Cecilia at Edgecliff in Sydney, and I went to see her, and I did what she told me to do. I did it religiously every single day. And after 6 months, she said, you don't know this, but your voice is back. Now I'm going to send you to my friend Patricia, who's been a singing teacher for 55 years, and she's going to teach you to sing. So I went to Patricia for 5.5 months, and then after almost a year, Patricia said, your voice is back, and it's better than it's ever been before. So I had been writing songs throughout that whole process. I've been a songwriter since I was a little boy. I started playing guitar when I was 7. And one of Australia's top producers heard the songs that I'd been writing, a guy called Dan Frizzer, and he said, I want to make Dan Mullins' new record. And my record company said, well, we don't have that kind of money. So it all just kind of fell in a heap, and this extraordinary opportunity fell away from us in a way. And my wife said, why don't you walk the Camino and ask or invite people to come with you? They can pay like a fee, and we'll do concerts each night along the Camino, and that'll pay for the record. And I said, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. So we did. We walked from Leon to Santiago de Compostela. So this is Camino number 4. And we did concerts each night in little pueblos, in little bars. We did them in 500-year-old wineries, in farmhouses. We did them on the side of mountains. We did gigs in churches. And we made the record. When we came home, we made the record. And it's called Pilgrim, and it did very well, and everyone's very happy. And then last year, we decided to do it again. So we walked the Portuguese, which is my 5th Camino, walking the Portuguese last year, and we took 42 people with us and did concerts every night again. And so with the podcast, with the walking as well, the 5 Caminos, with talking and meeting with people from all around the world all the time. Just today, I most probably got 6 or 8 emails today from people around the world wanting to tell me things, wanting to show me things. And I've got a couple of great things I want to show you before we finish tonight that people have sent me. The Camino has changed me immeasurably. So that little 15-minute summary was my kind of history, if you like. How I came to be here with you beautiful people on Camino Women and the campfire chat. You know, Pippa invited me, and Sophie and Shona, and we had a chat, and they were like, oh, I think it's going to be great. I said, well, you know, one of the things that inspires me, and one of the reasons why I can see 17 people here tonight, the Camino for me is about connection. And it's about connection with the land, with the ground you're walking on. And I love to talk to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islands. It is about connection because they know more about connection than anyone. But when you're a pilgrim on the Camino de Santiago or elsewhere in Europe, you are connecting with the land you're walking on. So powerful. You're connecting with maybe your higher being. You're connecting with other pilgrims, of course, who are walking with you. And there are so many people who get excited about forming Camino families. And then there is the connection of all of the millions of people who have walked before you and their intentions, their devotions, their prayers, their wishes, their hopes that they walked with are exactly the same as you are carrying when you walk. And so I'll go right back to the very start of what I started talking about. I don't know why I keep getting called back, but connection is a big part of it. And when Pippa and Shona and Sophie said, oh, we'll come and sit by the campfire with us, Dan, and chat, I knew I wanted to and was really looking forward to it and excited to be a part of it because I look forward to the connection that it brings and the offer of connection. So there is my Camino story, Pippa.
Thank you, Dan. What a beautiful introduction. I probably can't add very much to that. It's very inspiring to hear your story. And I think for all of us, how life can just take you off on an incredible path that we never anticipated. And I'm sure if someone told you 10 years ago that this would be your life now, that you'd be receiving emails from people all over the world about your music and your song and your Camino walks, or even that you've done it 5 times, I don't think you would have believed it. So I guess I have a healing friend that says to me, she has this gorgeous quote. It says, be open to everything and attached to nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that really sums it up. It's like none of us really know where the path is going to lead us, but it's just like have a big open heart and be available for connection and available for opportunities. And you're a living testament of where that can take you, Dan. It's really inspiring.
Yeah. Well, if I can just explain a little bit about what you said there, Pippa, open yourself up. I have a friend who's a physiotherapist, and when I was beginning my 2-week preparation to go to the Camino, she said, shine a light. And I said, I don't. So if you can imagine that there is a headlight in the middle of your chest, you never want that headlight shining down on the ground. You want that headlight shining parallel to the ground. That's how you walk. And that's how you make sure that your posture is at its best, right? That puts your shoulders above your hips, above your knees. If your light in the middle of your chest, your headlight is shining on the ground, your shoulders are in front of your hips are in front of your knees. And especially if you have a pack on your back, you'll be walking like this, right? So shine a light. Anyway, I came home from, I think, the Camino, the very long one. And I said to her, but you don't understand, like, shine a light is such a blessing. It's such a beautiful thing to say to someone. Hey, when you're walking the Camino, how about you should think about this, shine a light. And they all think, oh, that's so nice, shine a light. Yeah, be light and love, be brightness, be color, be inspirational, but no, it was about this walking process. So I would say to people, shine a light. And then another quite old German man who had walked 14 Caminos said to me, the Camino opens you up because you have your backpack opens your chest and opens you up to other people. And when you walk beside someone else, you're talking with them, not to them. And that's kind of why there's this energy on the Camino that lends itself in a way to very deep conversations. I don't know if all of you listening, there's nearly 20 people, but I have 3 sons and 2 grandchildren, but if ever I wanted to have a conversation with my sons that I wanted to talk about something a bit touchy, I put in the car because it's easier kind of driving in the car. But that's because you're talking to one another, not with one another, not to one another. And that's why the Camino lends itself to those very deep conversations, is part of that as well. So you're opening your heart, you're walking upright, and you're walking beside someone that you can talk with them, not to them. And that's a very powerful thing, hugely powerful thing.
I really love that you said that when we had our chat a couple of weeks ago about, opening your heart like that on the Camino. And someone told me once that we're the only animal that doesn't have our heart protected. Like you think of like a dog, its heart is, under its body and it's shielded, whereas humans, it's just like right front and center. So often we're really guarded and we form this kind of protective layer and shield around ourselves. But it's like, if we open that, the connection that you can form with other people is so much deeper and more meaningful if we sort of put our shield down. And maybe part of walking alongside someone or carrying the backpack is part of that process to get us to drop our little shield that we mostly carry through life and be vulnerable and be open to beautiful, connections that you never know where they'll take you.
There's absolutely no question about that, Pippa. And one of the other things about that is that I've spoken to so many people, and 456 interviews I've done or something. And something that keeps coming up is that the person that you're talking to is not judging you based on who you are. They don't know who you are. They don't know you're a teacher, a childcare worker, a nurse, a police officer, a doctor, a lawyer. You're just a pilgrim like them. You got dust on your legs and, you got to get through the day, walk the 25, 30 kilometers or whatever you have to do, wash your clothes, hang your undies on the line in front of everybody else, and away you go. So there's no judgment. Well, what's not to love about that? I can tell my story to this person if I feel I want to, or I can simply walk along and talk about the butterflies or the cuckoo birds or the views or the cowbells or whatever I choose to talk about. But if I want to say, when they say, is everything okay? Or are you happy? Or how are you? If you want to tell a bit more, well, you can, when they don't know what you already carry. They don't know how weighed down you are by what you already carry. And so maybe they'll help you carry what you're carrying, or maybe they'll tell you to set it down and give yourself some peace. But they're not going to judge you because they don't know who you are. And it's the roving confessional in many ways, because I don't know if many of you are Catholics. I was born and raised a Catholic, and frightened the living daylights out of me going into a confessional and this gauze sort of screen with some guy behind there with, cigarette breath, and the whole concept of everything it represented now is part of what I do when I talk to people and ask them, are you okay? Is there anything you need to talk about? Is there somehow I could support you? Is there something I could do to you or say to you that could provide you some support, help carry your emotional baggage for a while? Because emotional baggage is bloody heavy. And so they do. On the Camino, they do. And you get an opportunity to be someone's courier, a little emotional courier for a little while. And the reason why we're able to do it is because no one cares who the heck you are. You're just like them, a pilgrim. Yeah. What a blessing.
That connection and community is something that, we hold very dear, and that we really aspire to create amongst our guests, is that they'll meet new friends and perhaps have travel buddies to do more adventures with, or catch up for a coffee when they're home. And I think that walking is something where we slow down enough to really be present and to hear people properly. We're not trying to multitask and do 50 things. We're just strolling along somewhere like the Camino. It's, as you say, it's like you've left your sort of loaded suitcase of life's baggage somewhere along the way, maybe tossing a bit out here and there, or maybe you left it at the beginning, or maybe you didn't have one. But I think it's incredibly freeing. Walking, I don't know, there's so much research about walking and the benefits of it. But something magical happens, I think, to all of us when we walk. And I spoke to a lady today, and her husband had passed away a couple of years ago, and she said that her grief was lessened by lots of walking, and that it's helped her with her healing process, is just to go out and walk. So you don't have to do anything necessarily. You don't have to talk to anyone. You just go and be in nature and walk, and it's incredibly therapeutic. So yeah, I could talk about it all day long.
Yeah. And I think as well that if you are unsure about whether or not you can or should walk the Camino, if there's anybody of the nearly 20 people listening who hasn't walked and is thinking, oh, I've jumped on tonight because maybe I'm thinking of walking, or maybe I should or shouldn't I, the walking you do beforehand will convince you that it's the right thing to do, because you'll feel fantastic. You'll start to get healthier. You'll get that energy from the great outdoors, which is just so fantastic. So what's not to love about all of those things? That ticks there's so many boxes ticked there that walking is the salve for so many of our problems. There is no question about that. And then you can take it one step further. You might be doing 8Ks a day, but when you start doing 25Ks a day, wow, that's when you really strip yourself down, because by the end of it, you're exhausted. And having your feet up, maybe a plaster on a little tiny blister, or somebody massaging your feet, somebody you don't know massaging or tending to your feet. That's in a little Spanish village. And if you're walking in between April and October, the afternoons go forever. The sun doesn't. You think, when's the sun going to go down? And you can sit around chatting and talking and supporting one another and shining a light. Yeah.
Are there any standout interviews you've done with the 450 plus podcast interviews with guests that have walked the Camino that have really sort of touched you or just stuck with you as a incredible story?
Well, my friend Jennifer from Toowoomba, her daughter Tash was really going through a very, very difficult time. And I asked Jennifer, would she appear on the podcast and tell her story? And she had sort of liked something or friended me. I don't know what the heck, but I had followed her on social media. And so when I reached out to her, she said, oh my gosh, I'm a bit embarrassed. I don't know if I've got a story to tell. I said, well, why don't we just catch up and have a yarn? After 5 minutes, I knew she had the best story to tell ever. So Jennifer was a single mom with just a daughter, Tash, and they lived in Toowoomba, and they were very, very close to Jennifer's mother and father. Both parents died within 5 days of each other. The dad died very quickly, and the mother died of a broken heart straight away afterward. So Jennifer was completely and utterly just completely broken. And she was walking around Brisbane, and they lived in Toowoomba, so she'd never found herself much in Brisbane, but she was in Brisbane, walking in Edward Street, which I kind of know quite well. And she saw this bookshop, whatever, nothing was guiding her, nothing was inspiring her. She just was wandering aimlessly, completely broken human being. Walked up the stairs of this bookshop, walked across the top floor, and placed a hand on a book that said, Guide to the Camino de Santiago. She had no idea why she walked up the stairs, no idea why she reached out, no idea who or what or why her hand landed on that book. As she picked it up, she took it to Roma Street Station in Brisbane. By the time the train got up the range, she had read it and said, I'm going to do it. Tash had had lots of problems, lots of difficulties as a teenager, but she said, this is what we need to do to get over mum and dad, and this is what we need to get over Tasha's insecurities and her complicated teen years. So they go on the Camino de Santiago together, mother and daughter, and it is a complete disaster. They're fighting the whole time. They want to kill each other. They want to just like, it's just every single day is a nightmare. And Jennifer is Tash, who's had very, very serious anxiety and depression and mental illness, is like a nightmare. So Jen says to her, just go. Just go. She says, I'm going to go. So she leaves. And Jen knew from her app that she was still walking the Camino, but she didn't know where she was or anything. And Jen started to just get sadder and sadder and sadder and sadder. And then she's in a little town called Los Arcos. I don't know if anyone listening on the Los Arcos is a beautiful town, but has a really lovely town square with colonnades all around the outside. It's beautiful, beautiful. Lots of long tables in the middle of the town square, and a church bell that peals every 15 minutes and peals big time at the top of the hour. And Jennifer's in her albergue with 40-some beds, sitting there crying. How could I have been so stupid? How could I have done this? And a German man came and tapped her on the shoulder and said, could you come with me for a moment? And Jennifer said, why? He said, please, just come with me. So he led her out and, kind of pat her on the back and comforted her a little. And they went down to with the town square often than the colonnade, there are, it's blocked from the outside. There's only small archways into the main Plaza Mayor, the town square. And as they got closer, he said, I can't do a German accent, but he said, can you hear it? And she said, hear what? Hear what? What are you doing? What is this about? He said, can you hear it? And as she got closer, she heard her daughter laughing. And she was actually unable to remember the last time she heard her daughter laugh. And she went in and said to the German man, I can't go in there. I can't go in there. I don't want to stop what's happening. And he said, no. You have to go. You have to go. You have to be part of this transformation, this change. So he sat her down at a table a little way away and heard a tone in Tasha's voice, laughter in Tasha's voice, lightness, forgiveness, everything she had hoped to achieve. And a little while later, as the sun was going down again, as the Spanish afternoon seemed to go on forever, she went across and Tasha was talking to other people at the table and everything. And Jen just put her arms around her and just hugged her gently, just gave her a little cuddle. And she patted her on the daughter, patted her mum on the arm and said, thanks, thanks, mum, And they walked again the next day and the next day and the next day. And they walked all the way to Santiago de Compostela, and the photo of those two in Santiago, in the square in Obradoiro in Santiago de Compostela, is one of the most beautiful pictures I've ever seen in my entire life. It wasn't perfect when they came home. It didn't all heal all the wounds, but it certainly helped. And now Tash helps children, teenagers with mental health challenges, and she's a leader. And they're both leaders in their fields, and they're both hugely thankful for what they went through and learned by trusting that the pilgrimage would provide. And in some ways, the Camino provides. It's a bit of an old cliche, but in their case, it most certainly did. Jen went back 5 years later and slipped and had a compound fracture of her left leg and was 6 weeks in a Spanish hospital, which wasn't the ideal kind of follow-up. But I said to Jen, how do you explain or describe the Camino to people who ask about it? She said, it's like you start in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port with a knot of string in your tummy, and you tie it to the arch in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, and it slowly unravels all the way along the Camino that just leads you all the way there until you get to Santiago de Compostela, and there's no more knot of string in your stomach. And I've listened to that interview, oh gosh, I don't know how many dozens of times, because it always fills me with hope, and I recommend it to people, and it's by far and away my highest downloaded or listened to. I don't know. I don't care much about all that, but it was a story that Jen believed it would hurt, it would work, and it did.
That's beautiful. There's a theory, isn't there, about like the Camino, if it was divided into, say, 3 sections. The first section, it's like, I think your stuff comes up. Second section, you deal with it. And the third section, it's all resolved and off you go home. Something like that. Is it the Meseta, which is quite a big open area kind of in the middle, if you walk the whole thing, where it's quite bare, and I found it incredibly beautiful, but it can just seem endless to some people, I think, depending on what's going on.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The 3 stages. And actually, I just finished reading a book and interviewed the author of an American guy. Incredible story, extraordinary story. And he started the Camino completely broken human being, and got to the second third, started to realize, oh, I see what he had walked, I think, with a Polish priest who explained the 3 thirds to him. And he was walking the Meseta, and he was saying to himself, oh, I get it. I get it. The whole idea is that I get to the lowest of the low that I can get to, and then I'll start to come good. And he's walking, I don't know if anyone knows Lagos in Villa de Mazarif, and he had headphones on, and an old 80s gay anthem came on. And he started just dancing in the dust on the side of the road in the Meseta. And he said, some guy rode by on a bicycle and went, woohoo, yeah, go for it, man. Like really encouraging him. And he was like, what has happened to me in the last 30-something years or 40 years? I was never able to dance in the dust and then kick my heels up and enjoy myself. And here he was at the lowest of the low of his exhaustion, and kind of challenged himself so much in that moment, in that journey rather, that in that moment he was able to truly find deep, deep down inside him that little bit of love for himself. And that was the beginning of the change. And yeah, I don't know when I'm publishing that podcast, but if you want to have a listen to it, it's well worth it. and his name is Michael Rocker, and he was the head of a major international record company, who had a massive, like catastrophic nervous breakdown and found himself on the Camino de Santiago. It's a beautiful book. The book is called Under a Canopy of Grapes. And Michael is, he's testament to what it all means, how good it is. Yeah.
What would you say your funniest moment on the Camino is? I know there's also, very hilarious moments that we can all have, meeting strangers and goodness knows what. I've got plenty, but have you got any that stand out?
Well, yeah, I have. I'm just trying to find. I'm looking for it while I'm talking to you. Hang on, because I got. Oh, here it is. Here. I got a couple of things that I wanted to show you, but I was in what's the name of that town where that has the chickens in the church? Anyway, Santo Domingo del Casado. That's where it is, with the chickens in the church, which is a beautiful story. And if you believe in parables, it's a wonderful parable. And we were doing our washing, and the line was all full of underwear. And this lady came over, a British lady, and said, I wonder terribly, would you mind taking your underwear down? I'm trying to eat my dinner. And we were saying, what? And she's saying, oh, you're Australian. Well, and we said, wait a minute, wait. There's also Spanish people here. There's Italians. There's all sorts of people here. But I wonder, would you mind terribly taking out your underwear? I'm trying to eat my dinner. And we've always joked about it. And that there's about 16 people still in that group chat. And there'll be, it'll be a Thursday night randomly, and I won't have heard from them for 3 months even, and I'll look over, my phone will pop, and I'll look over and it'll be someone saying, I wonder terribly, would you mind taking down your underwear? I'm trying to eat my dinner. And we all laugh and laugh and laugh, and it's very funny, right? But then just this week, and I know we've got time restraints, but I'll wrap it up, I promise, by 7. But look what I got this week. Here's a new book, Australian couple, an undercover / an underwear expose, Odin and Miriam's Guide to Walking the Camino, but it's their underwear that's walking the Camino. Look, right? I get sent all this stuff. Look, there they are. They've arrived in Santiago. Look. Isn't that funny?
You need to send a copy to the English lady.
Yeah. And then look here, and there's another book like this. I think we're on a antsy pants. Well, I think we're on a theme here. But I wanted to, I just take a moment, and we're going to do it something, you and me, Pippa. So this is a Canadian artist. Sent me her Camino Oracle. Right? So it's like a tarot card oracle, but it's all these hand-painted oracle cards. Oh, all of them, all these hand-painted cards.
Wow.
And so if you're at a stage in the afternoon, or you can only do it once a day, but if you say, oh, what advice would the Camino give me about this? What can I do? Where am I going? I need some guidance. I need an answer. I need something. Who can I choose? Farah, say when.
When?
Okay, gotcha. Here we go. Your card, oh look, is Rose Garden. Isn't that gorgeous? Look, Rose Garden.
That's
I love
Yeah,
they're all
yeah.
hand painted.
Yeah, they're all hand painted, but they're prints. But now we go into the guidebook, right? And now we find Rose Garden. Here, let's find Rose Garden. And there's a little explanation about what. Here we go. Here we go. My eyesight's terrible. The roses grow every year. Each year, when the seasons get dark, they die back. Their bright blooms fall. They sit dormant, and with the warmth of spring, they come back. On the journey, we have lows and bodies hurt. We water the earth with our tears, but we too can come back with the spring. Isn't
I
that
love
beautiful?
That. Yes.
You are, Farah. So I've got this oracle. So I host trivia, like I'm a pub musician, right? I host trivia on Tuesday nights, and every Tuesday night I do it before I go down there, and I tell all the people in the pub, I go, "This is this week's oracle." They'll go, "What's the oracle this week, Dan?" And I tell them all. They're like, "This is the only trivia night in Sydney where it starts with some guy reading from a Camino oracle, but I do it religiously." Yeah. And then I get like, look at this. Here. This arrived yesterday. Hand painted. It's a calendar of hand paint of watercolors.
Wow.
My God, is that a Stella? Oh no, that's Bilbao. Yeah.
Isn't there a Camino gathering or something in Brisbane or Queensland?
Yes, there is a Camino gathering on the Sunshine Coast in July. And I'm doing a show on the Friday night. And then on the Saturday afternoon, I'm hosting a big forum with a whole heap of Camino experts and authors and stuff, which is going to be terrific. But there are a handful of spots still available. If you are inclined to be someone who meets and greets other pilgrims and wants to learn from them, it's the most wonderful weekend. It is just fantastic. The people are wonderful, kind, loving, and you learn so much, and you make some great friends. It's a lot of fun as well. Yeah. It's awesome.
I'll have a hunt for the details, and I'll share it with our community on the Facebook page or somewhere.
Yeah, it's on the Australian Friends of the Camino website, and yeah, and I think, as I say, I think there's a handful of spots available still, but it's fun. It's the best.
We have quite a few guests up on the Sunshine Coast. Sophie lives up that way, so yeah, we can share it. Someone in that part of the world might love to go.
Awesome.
Now, are you going to have a little sing along with us? Is that in the card?
So I told you the story about writing the song, and then I actually, when I walked from León to Santiago de Compostela, 1,000 kilometers, I carried a guitar on my back, and if I could get away with it, I sang for my supper each night like a 14th century troubadour. It was the stupidest thing I've ever done in my life, but I had a great time doing it. Met lots of people and had a lot of fun, but it was really not a good thing to do. But that guitar, I had to retire that guitar because it's so broken down and so old. So this is the new one. So this guitar is called Madonna, and she's a sweet thing, and I love her so much. And can you hear that guitar? Yeah. So just as the garbage truck has pulled up out the front outside my house, you can probably hear that as well. But that's living in the inner city, right? We're 4Ks from the Opera House, so we need to put up with it. But let me sing you this song, and I hope that it's a blessing for you as much as it is a blessing for me, and has been and continues to be. I'm gonna sing you a song. Here we go. El Camino Roses, Santo Domingo crows. Believe you can, you're halfway there. 7 bells to 4. Frighten off the horses, and also the wakes. A lion's white and open in heart, and a soul as old as slave. Here we go. Somewhere along the way, I hope you find what you're looking for. Somewhere along the way, cellos on a soundboard beneath a field of stars, laughing camellia growing, crossing fields afar. Will you walk beside me? Will you lead the way? Footsteps by the fountain, oh, they carry me away. Somewhere along the way, somewhere along the way, I hope you find what you're looking for. Somewhere along the way, how will I ever forget the Spanish sunrise, the Spanish sunset? El peregrino cantante, fullness of the moon, prayers beneath the arches, oh, and sunflowers in bloom. Words on parchment paper, fill an empty room. I hope this blessing, such as it is, finds you in full bloom. Somewhere along the way, somewhere along the way, I hope you find what you're looking for. Somewhere along the way.
Wow.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. That's just gorgeous. I wish we were around a proper campfire.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole story, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh, look at all the. Oh, that's so nice to see all the hearts and
Dan,
cheers.
what
Thank
a-
you so much.
What an absolute treat to have you join us. Thank you so much.
It's been so great. But there's one other thing I just want to mention, that when I did that Camino, inspired by my beautiful wife who organized everything and did an amazing job, a Canadian filmmaker made a documentary about it, and the movie is called Somewhere Along the Way. And it's going to be released. We've shown it a handful of times in Australia, a couple of sold out screenings in Perth and Hobart and Sydney. And if you I don't know, if you'd like us to show it in your neck of the woods, shoot me a message via Dan Mullins Music. .com, my website, danmullinsmusic.com, and maybe we can make something happen. But it's, I think, going to be on sort of like pay for view, like for $5 or something later in the year. Maybe we can let them know.
Yeah, definitely. We will. Yeah. Maybe we'll even get a movie night happening amongst
Yeah,
we'll give
that'd
it
be fun.
give it a whirl. I'm probably not somewhere big enough at the moment. I'm out in like little coastal town, but you know, Dob's shown her in. She's in Melbourne. Maybe. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Won't promise, but yeah, we'd love to support your documentary. That would be amazing.
Thank you for your kindness. Thank you.
Yeah,
So
it's been such a treat. Thank you. I hope you've inspired lots of the girls here to get out walking and see what unfolds.
Thanks, Pippa. And thank you all so much for your kindness. Thank you so much for allowing me into your lives for an hour on a Monday night. It's been a pleasure, a real pleasure, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Before I let you go, just one thing I thought, if anyone's got any questions, please, go for it. If you've got something you're busting to ask Dan, I don't want to shut this down. If anyone's got a burning question they want to ask him. So just take yourself off mute and fire away if anyone wants to ask him anything. Doesn't. I don't need glasses on. Don't think so. Anyone? Shona? No. Farah probably has the rose. The blooming rose.
Rose garden, yeah, good call. I haven't pulled that card before. I liked it.
That's the first time.
No, mine is just getting my budding gear to do it. The last time I had it planned, I ended up doing Mount Everest base camp instead, so it's still on my bucket list.
We'll put it on your bucket list instead.
Yeah. Well, lovely to have you along this evening, Dan, and thank you.
Thanks,
so much.
Pippa. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Okay,
Thanks,
see you now.
Dan. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you so much. Bye now.
Thank you. Have to figure out the recording.
Thank you, Pippa.
Oh, thank you for coming along. I'm just